Welcome to Legacy Builders, strategies for building successful family enterprises. Brought to you by Beacon Family Office at Osante Financial Management Limited. I'm your host, Corey Gagnon, Senior Wealth Advisor, and on this show, we explore global ideas, concepts, and models that help family enterprises better navigate the complexities of family wealth. Today, we welcome Franco Lombardo, founder and CEO of Veritage International, family business facilitation and coaching. With over 20 years of experience, Franco has established himself as a trusted advisor to some of the world's wealthiest families. He is renowned for his innovative safe space model, which helps families achieve emotional safety and healthy dynamics. Franco's unique approach to blending directness with compassion has made him a sought-after expert in family wealth counseling. His work focuses on fostering positive, emotionally connected environments for families navigating the complexities of wealth management and intergenerational relationships. My goal is to be the most curious person in today's conversation with Franco Lombardo, where we explore his groundbreaking work in emotional governance and family enterprise dynamics. We'll dive into how self-awareness can transform both individuals and organizations, challenging conventional wisdom about family enterprises. Franco will share insights that promise to reshape our understanding of wealth, relationships, and purpose in family businesses, offering fresh perspectives on building lasting legacies that go beyond traditional strategies. Now, let's dive in. Welcome, Franco. We're excited to have you here today to share your wealth of knowledge and experiences with us. Let's dive in, shall we?
Sure.
Franco, imagine you're delivering the commencement speech to the graduating class of 2024, and you have the chance to inspire them with your story. How would you begin your speech to convey the incredible lessons and expertise that you've gained along your career?
What a great question. I would start by asking the question of how well do you know yourself? Have you ever considered why you do what you do? Why do you think the thoughts you think, behave the way you behave, act the way you act, deal with money the way you deal with money, and see yourself the way you see yourself? And then I would ask him, is that aligned with the purpose and legacy you want to leave behind? And that would be it.
Wow. And so tell me on that, Franco, like, how well do you know yourself? That's a strong question to start out with, and a great thing to reflect on. Where does that come from in your story?
Well, I, like you, started my career in wealth management, and I was good at it, but it didn't really, jack me up. It didn't juice me. It didn't give me like, oh, I got to go and make more money, right? But because I was good at it, I made a lot of money. And I realized, later in my career that even though I was making a lot of money, I was incredibly unhappy and unfulfilled, and frankly felt vacant inside. And the other piece was my behavior was one of, pardon my word, audience, but it's the only one I can use to describe, was I was an asshole. I was a self-centered guy. Look at my grandiosity. And I thought there had to be more to life than that. So I went and hired a coach, and he helped me realize where all that was coming from. Where was this need to over accentuate myself, trying to use money as a way to measure my value? And I realized I was more fascinated by the actual emotional side of wealth and the actual management of it. And that's what started me on the journey. And as a result of that, I'm able to really tap into and hit pause when life happens, and I get to choose how I react from a behavioral perspective instead of the behavior choosing me.
I like that. And so hitting pause, what didn't that look like before? What would life be where somebody didn't have that freedom to hit pause?
Well, the thing, Corey, is as human beings, we think we're in control of our lives, and the reality is we're not. What's in control of our lives, what manages us as humans, is our narrative, our conditioning, our emotional wound, our story. Something happens in the past, and we make decisions about ourselves, but we never go back and question them. right? So one of my narratives used to be that it's my fault, right? Something happens, it's my fault. So I would operate from the narrative, it's my fault. I got to make people feel happy. I got to go rescue them because at the end of the day, it's my fault and I'll be punished. Until we understand the narrative, the behavior will be automatic based on the narrative, right? So when we understand our narrative, we get to choose the behavior. Now, in the work we do with clients, we don't just help them understand what their behavior is, also the impact it has on their relationships, whether that's familial relationship, shareholder relationships or operational relationships that are working in the business.
And so that freedom to hit pause and listen to that narrative, choose the behavior that follows. How does that happen?
Lots of practice. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm a big quotes guy. I love quotes, right? And, one of my favorites is from Galileo. It says, all truths are easy to understand once they're uncovered. The keys to uncover them.
Right.
Right. So I go back to, the commencement speech would be, what is the truth about you? Do you really know who you are? Right. Because once you know who you are, you can uncover who you want to become and the impact you want to have. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I just lost my thought for a second. But yeah, let's keep asking. Great questions, by the way. Like really great stuff.
Great. Awesome. So hitting pause and being able to uncover those truths. It to me, I can envision somebody sitting there listening to us, Franco, and they're feeling a bit vulnerable. You want to uncover my truths, those things, those narratives that I've used for years to protect myself, and it's going to do what for my future?
Yeah. So I created a quote, and I love using it, and I'll take credit for it. Is the path to the meadow of transformation is by meandering through the forest of our feelings. Right? Societally, we are more emotionally disconnected than ever, considering how connected we are technologically.
Yes.
And we have been conditioned gradually that it's not okay to feel our feelings, let alone express them. Right? So a child is having a bad day, and the parent says, "I don't like you right now because I can't handle the behavior." So the child goes internally, they don't like me, so therefore they don't like my behavior, they don't like my feelings. So it's best if I'm liked, I don't express what's coming up.
Right.
And it happens like this, right? What the parent should consider doing is, I love you, Corey. I just don't like your behavior right now. So separate the two.
Yes.
Right? So what happens is, because, the reason Veritage exists is I believe we all want to feel emotionally safe. Want to feel safe in our relationships, want to feel safe in our environments, and we certainly want to feel safe with our wealth. The problem is most of us don't, because we all come from this thing called family, where somewhere along the line, we were made to feel unsafe, either consciously, intentionally, or unintentionally or unconsciously. Yep. The reality is we have human beings out there walking around that don't feel emotionally safe.
Right.
So if you don't feel emotionally safe with yourself, how can you possibly know yourself? If you don't know yourself, how can you possibly hit pause? Your reactions are automatic.
Right.
So we have a tool that we use. It's called the awareness tool. It's really about saying an event occurs, and let's say, okay, I'm going to use an example. So let's say that I dated a girl who I was madly in love with, who drove a convertible white BMW. Okay, so that's the context. So every time I see a white convertible Beamer go by, that's the event. The thought is, I'm not lovable because I got dumped.
Right.
Right. The feeling is, well, there's loneliness. Maybe there's some anger and rage that may be unresolved. There may be some shame or guilt, whatever. So those are the feelings. So what's the belief about myself? I'm not lovable. So the behavior is, I will go find situations to prove the belief that I'm not lovable. Yes. And we do this subconsciously.
Yes.
Dan Sullivan has a great quote that says, when you go to his office, says, the eyes only see and the ears only hear what they look for and hear for.
Yep.
So we seek proof for what our beliefs are. Again, do you really know yourself? Is that really who you are? Do I deserve to be loved? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But until I was really able to go, I deserve to be loved, I would always attract relationships that prove that I was lovable.
Yes. And so that becomes a tangled mess. There becomes, those narratives, years and years, create a lot of relationships, a lot of arrangements, a lot of things that feel as though, how does somebody get free of that? To say, I made these decisions based on these narratives. And now, Franco, you're telling me that I can take pause. I actually have the ability to do that, to reflect on why that white car triggers that emotion, why I'm reacting to my spouse when they say this, or my business partners, or my parents and siblings.
First of all, like I said before, everything we do for a reason.
Yes.
Okay. It's either based on our conditioning, which is past based, or it's based on our purpose or desire to contribute, or what I call safe space. Most individuals haven't done the internal work to understand themselves to cover what these reasons are. Now, the reason to move from what I call the default identity, who is who we think we are, based on our conditioning, has to be bigger to move our position, right? So it's about, once we uncover what our purpose is, our personal purpose, our individual purpose, why are we here, right? What am I here to do that if I don't do it, no one else will do it? Because it's mine to do, right? Until we uncover what our purpose is, we're always going to be in the default identity, because the reason is big enough to shift. Because our greatest addiction, Corey, is to our identity. And our identity is made up of our beliefs, our behaviors, our emotional traditions, our emotional addictions. And until we uncover those, we're not going to change. So I'll tell you a brief story. People, advisors, folks that refer as clients, whether they're wealth managers, lawyers, accountants, or other families, or trust advisors, they'll say to me, how do we know when a client's ready? And I'll say, let me indulge in a story. There's this salesman who sells, seed to a farmer. They've been clients for years. They become friends. So they're sitting on the porch having a tea, watching the sunset, a little iced tea. And, Jimmy's the salesman, and he's saying that, Sam is the farmer, and Sam's dog is the porch, and they're talking, and the dog goes, woo. He says, Sammy, what's wrong with your dog? He says, Jimmy, don't show him on the dog. He's just fine. Keep talking, woo. What's wrong with your dog? I told you. Don't mind the dog. One more time. Woo. What's wrong with your dog? He leans over and goes, well, I guess he ain't gotten tired of sitting on the nail yet. Human beings are incredibly resilient and high pain tolerance to emotional baggage. We like to hang on to it because it's who we are. It's our identity. So until we have a calling to move forward, something bigger than ourselves, we will always stay on the nail. It's human nature.
And so, that pain of the present that's not as big as it needs to be to create that forward momentum. There's so many people in this world who, the reference to the frogs in the pot, they don't realize that it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And
we stay in relationships longer than we should, whether they're romantic or intimate, right? We stay in business relationships longer than we should, right? Because we think that's who we are. That's who our identity is. Once we get to know who we truly are, and we understand why we do what we do,
right?
Because the work that we do with families is, it starts with the individual. The individual has to feel emotionally safe with themselves first.
Yes.
Part of that is understanding their mechanism, understanding their narrative, and then realizing, oh my God, this narrative isn't serving those that I'm surrounded with.
Right.
I need to change that. So there's an awareness, there's an acknowledgement, and then there's a significant desire to change because to see the impact that they have. And as I tell everybody, the longest relationship we're going to have is the one with ourselves. Why not make it a good one? And we take ourselves into every single relationship.
Yes.
So we don't realize we're dating the same woman, just got a different name, but it's the same person.
Yep. And so, Franco, what does that safe space, what does that mean to you, and what does that create?
So Safe Space, Governance in Action was my fifth book, which I think was published in 2017. And the idea of safe space was, it's that thing that we're seeking that we didn't get enough as a child that we still seek as an adult. And simplistically, it's what we're seeking externally, but we're lacking internally. So I use myself as an example. I was lacking emotional connection with myself and my family. So I would seek it externally in other means, making a lot of money, right? Notice me, right? But I was incredibly disconnected from myself. So my safe space is connection. When I'm connected with myself, which is when I know myself and I'm able to, pause, that's when I'm in my power. I am connected to myself. I'm connected to my feelings. I'm connected to my emotions. I'm connected to how I choose to react versus the reaction choosing me. And that's what I call governance in action. I'm governing myself. I have a behavioral structure that I've put in place to be able to manage that.
Right.
That's what safe space is.
Now, your reference to that love as a child and doing this with family members, they could have the response of, well, it's my fault. I'm the older generation, and Franco, I didn't love you enough as my son or nephew or whatever that relationship is. And they can feel a shame response to you declaring what you just did. So how can families feel safe together to discover this?
Well, let's talk about the parent, right? So you know what? So it's important for us to realize that our parents did the best they could with the tools they had and the equipment they had at their time, right? You know what? My parents, I'm 59. I'm going to be 59 this year. So my parents, were older, right? And coaching wasn't as accessible or in the norm today, right? So it's really about, the parent that thinks, I did a poor job, blaming themselves. Is about having compassion. You did the best you could based on what you were taught, right? And hence we have emotional traditions that are passed down from generation to generation that we keep repeating, right? So for me, it's about, working on my stuff, say, yeah, my parents contributed to it, and I have compassion for them because they did the best they could. So part of the work that we do is we help individuals move from a place of judging self or judging others to having compassion for self and having compassion for others. Because when we operate from a place of compassion, we become curious and we want to explore. There's a different energy associated with curiosity versus judgment.
I love that. Brene Brown has the question that she asks: do you believe that people are doing their best? And I can't tell you, Franco, how many times I've asked people that question. And ultimately, what that reflection is that people don't believe that they're doing their best when they say that they don't believe others are doing their best.
Correct.
And having that self-compassion is key and allows you to have that compassion.
And Corey, it's important for all of us and listeners, really hope you hear this, is everybody that we interact with, including our parents, or the billionaire or, the beggar on the street, we all have a story and we all have a narrative and we all are struggling with something based on that story. And if people haven't done the work to develop the self-awareness, we should have compassion for them. Now, if they've done the work, as an old coach when you say, once you know, you can't unknow.
Right.
So there's no excuses then.
Yes. Now, Franco, generational trauma, it can put people in a place of despair in society. As you mentioned, the beggar, there could be people who are very low on that economical scale. But then there's people who, even though that trauma is controlling their life, they actually appear to be thriving from an economics perspective. And so that judging a book by its cover, you really can't tell. And as you said, we all have a story. And so the family who's managed to create billions, but still struggles with that trauma, how do they disconnect that identity?
Well, I think the first thing is there has to be the recognition that there's something missing, right? Because I think society, we would condition that when we achieve wealth, whatever that number is, all of our problems go away. And in reality, that just magnifies who we are at our core.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. You don't get lemon juice, you get orange juice. So when you add pressure to a human being, you get what they're made of, right? Which is their identity, their story, their conditioning, their narrative. And the challenge that wealthy families have is they're scared to be vulnerable. They're afraid to say, yeah, I'm worth $1 billion. And, I have a dysfunctional relationship with my kids. and even though it hurts them, they may not verbalize. So what we offer is that safe haven for them to say, yeah, you know what, yes, I'm worth a lot, and wow, I sure miss my kids, and I feel awful for them. How can I remedy? I still have to meet a family member that says to me, you know what, I have no interest in healing my relationships. They want to, they just don't know how to.
Right.
And their conditioning, their identity, their narrative is in the way. So we have to identify it and remove it.
Now, that focus and really, we're going deeper than the human capital here. We're really getting into that spiritual capital of the family. And it's often one that's not focused on. It's the thing that's put in the corner, and yeah, one day we'll deal with it, or maybe we'll check it off the list because we need to. And really what you're saying here, Franco, is really getting into how important this is to the fundamental of who we are. We're talking about purpose. We're talking about the reason we're here. And that dash is pretty short. We don't have a lot of years between birth and death here. And so families getting to that point, they've now decided that nail we're sitting on is just too damn painful. And so when people have figured it out and they've not just checked it off the list because that's something that we're supposed to do because our advisors say we should focus on our spiritual capital, what's the byproducts? What are the unintended consequences here?
Well, I'll talk about the benefits and the positive outcomes, right? So when families engage me, I say, you know what, first of all, you're not hiring me for better relationships. You're not hiring me for better communication. You're hiring me for different relationships and different communications. So we have no idea what different is until we get there, right? And as I tell my clients, if you want different, you got to do different. And to do different, you got to become different. You got to change internally, right? So some of the benefits are, I just had the privilege of interviewing a family in Melbourne for a conference. We had Dad, who's the founder, and two of the sibs. And, we had 45 minutes, and I watched them transform an audience and transform an organization with their openness and vulnerability of just sharing their stuff and what the process has been like. And they got mobbed after. How did you do it? What you have is amazing. We've all gone to the family business, family office conferences where the conversations are what I call weathered, the superficial, right? The founder said to me, I had a mother come to me of one of the wealthiest families in Australia say, I have an issue with an in-law. I don't trust them. How do I deal with it? Like right at it, right? So the benefits are courage to speak the truth, to go at issues head on without fear of them. Vulnerability, which becomes magnetic. We're drawn to vulnerability. And to be able to, like I said, know ourselves. Like I said in the commencement speech, do you really know yourself? Because you can't really have purpose and impact unless you know yourself, right? And it was, for me, it was an incredible validation of the work. Because what I've realized is I am different. I'm a weird cat out there in the space. And what we do is different. And what happens is families become different because of the work they do with it. And to be able to witness it was like awesome. It was like, an incredible, like I said, validation. Because there have been times, Corey, when I've been doing this going, what am I, insane? No one else gets this? Am I nuts? Right? And now we're starting to see, yeah, we have something here. And there's proof of it. You go on our website, you see the video testimonials of people that say what is done for them, what is done for their families, right? And it's just, and it takes courage. We have to want to change because, harmony and unity don't happen through governance. They don't happen through shows agreements. They happen by individuals creating harmony and unity within themselves, feeling emotionally safe, creating that safe space for themselves so they can create safe space with others. That's why our process is individual safety, relational safety, familial safety. Has to start that way.
Right. Now, those families that, as you said, the lady that came up to this panelist that you had, and she felt that magnet pull. She said, here it is. And so what does that look like in the world where you've got people who are showing that vulnerability, and now they've got the magnetic pull where other people who are like them start showing up? Because I see that as an amazing benefit here.
When family members become vulnerable themselves, they inspire and empower the others to become vulnerable.
Right.
So what happens is we deal with the issues fast. We get resolution quickly. We make decisions very quickly. And interestingly enough, they make more money because there's less energy spent on the issue.
Right.
Right? We've dealt with it. The issue is the pen's yellow. It's not what it means. The pen is yellow. Let's deal with it.
Yes.
Right? So vulnerability inspires vulnerability.
Right.
Truth inspires truth. So when we're able to be vulnerable with ourselves and be honest with ourselves, we inspire others to do the same. Like I go back, like I love quotes. So I go back to, the Marianne Williamson quote, which was Mandela's inaugural speech. Our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we're powerfully unbetter. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. I'm going to shorten it. And when we allow ourselves to show up, our presence automatically liberates others.
Yes.
So once people know who they are, and they operate from a place of vulnerability and trust and truth about who they are, it inspires others to do the same.
Right.
So that's the benefit of working with individuals and with a family, and the impact that Veritage has on families is they get to really they become different. The conversations are different.
And what does that look like, when you talk about purpose, Franco, and we're talking about enterprising families, and maybe they have operating businesses, or maybe it's financial capital, but now they've discovered that purpose. They can go and do something with that. And oftentimes we talk about the societal impacts, and it comes from charitable giving, and absolutely a fantastic conversation. But I see this as something within the business. There can be a lot of social benefit here. What have you seen in those shifts?
So, typically what happens is purpose typically has been sort of misinterpreted, in my opinions, right? So purpose is a way of being. It's a way of behaving. And individual purpose has to be consistent across the board, right? So we really did work with a family where we helped them uncover that their purpose is to empower for community impact. Now, if you think about that, if each family member feels safe with themselves, they're living that purpose. They're empowering themselves for community, which is the family impact. We do that collectively as a family, now it ripples. From there, we help them uncover what their mission is, which is transparency through vulnerability. That's not some corporate thing. That is a way of being.
Right.
Because the beauty about purpose is you're either doing it or you're not. There's no gray area. Right? And then their vision is transformation. They're all about transformation. So when they shared that in the panel, they were living proof of that purpose, vision, and mission, individually and collectively, so much so that they transformed an entire audience.
Wow. And so that then, as you mentioned, is not what we're going way deeper than family governance here. And then it comes back to family governance. Like I think it does fit once you've embarked on this journey and you bring back your findings. You're talking about vision and mission and values. And now we have an ownership group who is going to transform their corporate, put it on the website, to now this is how we hold our management team accountable.
So You know what happens is a lot of corporations and individuals, have this is my core value, right? And they pick, no disrespect, folks, they pick the trendy ones: integrity, responsibility, transparency, vulnerability, that sort of stuff. The work that we do is we help families uncover what are their guiding principles. So we identify it, then we define it, and we take it a step further. What's the action that proves you're living the definition of the guiding principle? So, for example, a guiding principle of a family is expression of feelings. What's the action? Curiosity and connection. Simple. Guiding principle number two, playfulness. What's the action? Childlike engagement. Tell me more. Tell me more. Ask why. Yeah. So when we have guiding principles, they're more rooted in action based than some word called integrity, where how do you measure it?
Right.
And the thing with vision, mission, and purpose in the work that we do, it is a way of being for all your capitals. So it is a way of being with your wealth, your family capital, your human capital. So it is the way you are consistent, because the common denominator in every single relationship, Corey, is us.
I love that. That is fantastic.
And then part of this is we help families create emotional governance, which works in conjunction with traditional governance, because traditional governance doesn't address behaviors and beliefs and the emotional side of things. It doesn't go deep enough. There are policies and procedures for decision making. Here's how you run a family council. Here's how you run a family meeting. Here's how you run a board. Great. But what's the behavior of those board members? What's their narrative as they're sitting at the board? How do they treat each other as human beings? That's not addressed enough or paid enough attention to. So we thought we're just going to focus on that.
And so that governance around beliefs, I don't believe I'm hearing you saying that it means that everyone around the table needs to have the same belief.
No, it means about coming together about a set of guiding principles that we collectively agree to, buy into, and adhere to, and live.
Right.
So the family agrees to the guiding principle of expressions of feelings, and the action is curiosity and connection. You're either doing that or you're not.
Right.
But they've come to that particular guiding principle.
Yes. And then they're showing up in such a consistent way, as you said, in all those areas. And that's identifiable by any means. If you actually, going back to where we started about knowing yourself and not even hitting the pause button, but just being aware of those around you, that is easy to see. And I think that in this busy world, it's so difficult to identify where is that trauma that's governing versus actually having that personal freedom and those guiding principles, because that work's been done and that safety's been created.
And part of the thing is, once you know your story, you can rewrite it, right? We take our clients for a journey of, identifying their default identity, and then they design their design identity. This is who I want to be. This is who I am. Not me based on some narrative of lies I've been buying into for so long about myself, right? So one of the lies I used to tell about myself, I sure really was, it's my fault, right? The truth is, I'm a gift, right? And the truth, the lies I tell about myself in the context of religion was, I'll be punished because it's my fault, right? The truth is, I am treasured in my relationships. So now I have something to measure myself on. Am I treating myself as a gift through my behaviors and my beliefs or not? There's no gray area. And am I being treasured in my relationships? And if I'm not, I get to choose. I want to stay it or not. Position of strength and power and self-integrity versus the narrative of it's my fault and I'll be punished. And then guess what? We have a lie about money too, huh? And we all have this narrative about money that we never examine. But that's maybe a separate conversation.
I think it is. And I'll enjoy having that conversation when we do, Franco. And I think that's a great place to transition as we near the end here today. And there's a few questions that I ask each guest before we wrap up. And are you ready for the tough ones?
Go.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I think these ones will be different the way you answer from the perspective in our conversation. So, Franco, what is one key strategy that you believe is the most essential for building a successful family enterprise?
I would say including everybody in the conversation, right? And trusting and respecting each other. You don't have to agree, just trust and respect and include.
Love it. Love it. And what is the most common challenge that you see family enterprises encountering when it comes to wealth transition and generational continuity?
They don't know how to have the conversations. They're avoiding the obvious conversations because they don't know how to. It's not they don't want to, they just don't know how to. How do I start telling you about how I'm feeling if I don't know how I'm feeling myself?
Right. Yeah. And is there one key strategy that you find to overcome that?
Yeah, get to know yourself. Go hire a coach. Get to know why you do what you do.
Yeah. Awesome. And in your experience, what are the top three key qualities that successful family enterprise leaders possess?
Well, number one is self-awareness, emotional awareness. As a result of that, that leads to vulnerability and self-accountability. And that empowers others to do the same. So they're exceptional leaders. But they're self-leaders. They lead themselves first by action, and then they inspire and empower others to do the same by their example.
Awesome. And before we conclude our discussion, I'd like to highlight where listeners can engage in more of the conversations that you're having, as well as the conversations that you're listening to, or maybe things that you're reading.
Yeah, so if they want to learn more about us, they can find us at veritage.ca. There's a number of client testimonials about the journey. There's talking about our process. We also have a podcast, Safe Space. We have a newsletter, but a communication called The Truth Agent, which is our latest thinking. So if folks want to register for that, they can now do it on LinkedIn or on the website. And that's just our freshest thinking that they can just get.
Fantastic. And Franco, I wanted to make sure that we covered everything that you wanted to cover today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience that we didn't get a chance to touch on?
Be brave. You know what? Go understand yourself, get to know yourself, because then you can really have impact. Having a lot of money or a lot of possessions is really worthless without true impact. And yeah, just go invest in you.
Well, that's a great way to end. And Franco, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise and experiences with us. Your insights have been incredibly valuable to me, and I'm grateful for it. And I know that our listeners will be as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thanks, Corey. Love the work you're doing.
As we wrap up this episode, we invite you to reflect on Franco's transformative insight about the power of self-awareness, emotional safety, and vulnerability within family enterprises. Whether you are part of a family enterprise or provide consulting to family businesses, Franco's approach to emotional governance and the creation of safe spaces provides invaluable tools for fostering authentic relationships and effective decision-making. Throughout our discussion, we explored the deep connection between personal growth and family business success. Franco showed us how tackling ingrained narratives and creating emotionally safe environments can revolutionize how family businesses operate. We discovered practical ways to foster genuine relationships and make better decisions, seeing how openness and shared values can align personal fulfillment with business goals. These ideas offer family enterprises a fresh approach to building lasting, meaningful legacy that span generations and positively influence their communities. For families seeking to enhance their dynamics and governance through emotional intelligence, Franco Lombardo at Veritage International offers expert guidance and support. You can reach out to Franco via his website, and we've included his contact information along with additional resources in the show notes to assist you in your journey toward creating a harmonious family enterprise. Thank you for joining me, Corey Gagnon, your host of Legacy Builders Podcast. It's my personal passion to explore with you these topics related to family wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast platform. And don't forget to share this episode with family, friends, and colleagues who you care about. If you'd like to help support this show, you can do so by leaving a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything shared on today's episode, or have topics you'd like us to dive deeper into in future episodes, please let us know by emailing beaconfamilyoffice@asante.com. That's beaconfamilyoffice@assante.com. Legacy Builders, Strategies for Building Successful Family Enterprises is brought to you by Beacon Family Office at Asante. Are you worried about losing what you've created and seeking ways to transition your wealth across generations? Beacon Family Office at Asante supports our clients transition their wealth while maintaining relationships. If you'd like to access more content we've created, you can visit us at beaconfamilyoffice.com or for more details on our services and book an initial call. Thanks again for listening, and until next episode, stay intentional about building your legacy. This program was prepared by Corey Gagnon, who is a senior wealth advisor with Beacon Family Office at Asante Financial Management Limited. This is not an official program of Asante Financial Management, and the statements and opinions expressed during this podcast are not necessarily those of Asante Financial Management. This show is intended for general information only and may not apply to all listeners or investors. Please obtain professional financial advice or contact us at beaconfamilyoffice@asante.com or visit beaconfamilyoffice.com to discuss your particular circumstances prior to acting on the information presented.